Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to this final edition of the Here to Serve podcast for 2024. My name is Laura Bowen, and I'm the Executive Director here at USTA Florida. Our topic today is best practices in managing public tennis centers. I couldn't ask for a better guest than Wendy Tatum, who has served as the Director of Tennis and Pickleball at the Palm Beach Gardens Tennis and Pickleball Center since 2014. In her day-to-day job, Wendy oversees just about every aspect of operations of one of our best-in-class public tennis centers in the state. She has a wealth of knowledge and experience that she often shares with us and other municipalities that are looking to improve their programs and services. Wendy also has served as the chair of USTA Florida's Public Parks Committee, and the goal of that committee is to provide full service and support to public parks throughout the state. I think you'll enjoy this conversation with Wendy, where she talks about all of the things that they've learned in terms of growing tennis and generating revenue at the Palm Beach Gardens Tennis and Pickleball Center, and what advice she has for other municipalities looking to grow and expand their services. Enjoy this episode of the podcast, and we'll be back in January with more episodes of the Here to Serve podcast for you to enjoy. Happy holidays. Good morning, Wendy. Thank you so much for joining me today on this final episode of the Here to Serve podcast for 2024. I couldn't have picked a better guest, I think, and a better topic for us today.
Thank you. Good morning to you. We're privileged.
So I wanted to talk today a little bit about your facility, but also maybe some of the best practices and learnings that could apply to other public tennis and rackets facilities in the state of Florida. So can you tell us just a little bit about the Palm Beach Gardens Tennis and Pickleball Center, and maybe what makes it unique in terms of a public tennis center in the state of Florida?
Sure. I think just from a visual, we upgraded and went into a new building, but from a visual, when you walk in our doors, the first thing you'll think to yourself is, wow, this looks like a private club. And then people walk in and go, can we just play? I mean, we're not members here. And we're like, absolutely, we're a public facility. So I think that is the first thing that people notice when they walk in the door. And there always seems to be, and we get this from everybody that walks in, like this buzz, like they want to know what's going on. We're busy. What are you guys doing? So just visually and somebody stepping in the door, I think those are the first two things that people would say: the atmosphere, the buzz, the beautifulness of the setting. Besides that is, when they walk in and they're looking for something to do, we hand them on one of our brochures that tells everything that we have and what we have going on. So we have something for everybody. So I think that kind of sets us aside too. We try to really include anybody in the community, whether you're a beginner, whether you're here just out of town visiting family and you want to play tennis, or you want to bring your family to a tennis center. We have all the answers for you. We have a class for you. We have a drop-in for you. So I think right off the bat, just the beauty of the building, the accessibility of the building, and the welcoming of the building just sets us a little bit aside of what maybe you would think as a typical public facility.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons we've really recognized your facility here at USTA Florida, but also at USTA, was that incredible supportive environment that you have, that everybody who walks into that center can play. And that's something we believe in, that we shouldn't turn anybody away. If you come in and say, I want to play, we should serve you. And I think you all, have maintained that in such a good way. And I think you even said, like, your city says yes to everything, which we're very grateful that your city says yes to everything that we want to do. And that you and your team say yes to everything that we want to do, because that actually is what makes it kind of a magical place for people who want to play.
Right. And there is that yes. So when I did accept that word and say the yes thing, my boss always looks at me and tells us, because we do so much, that she says, every now and then you really can say no. And I'm all, but no, I can't, because it's for a good cause, or it's for, the better of the community. And so, and they do support, and I think that it starts from the top down, right? So from our city manager to Charlotte, who is my direct boss, everybody, it just funnels down. The mayor attends a lot of our events that we do. Everybody is in tune to what we do, and they back everything we do. So yes, that's very, very important, especially at a public facility, to get the green light for most everything.
Well, you mentioned earlier that the upgrades you made to the building, which is absolutely beautiful. I think I came down there. You weren't there that day, but I was one of those random people just wandering around and admiring how beautiful it really is. And then you also added pickleball to the mix of what you offer, and you did that sort of a few years ago. So I wanted to know, what was the driving force behind expanding the footprint, what you offered in the building? And how much advocacy did it take to get that massive project approved in the city?
You know what, it was, I kind of want to say it was basically easy, because they saw that the amount of people that were coming through our 1,200 square foot building, and that we just were overflowing. So since I've been there, we added, 4 courts, 8 courts. We just kept growing. And they saw that. They really saw that, people in the ladies' teams and everything we had going on, they saw that we were busting at the seams. So it wasn't that hard of a sell at that point. And then we went from that 12,000 square foot to 1,200 to 12,000 square foot building, which now I feel like we've already outgrown that. So if I say that to them, they cringe, but it's it's kind of true. But it just goes to, move forward to say how still popular and all the sports and the racket sports and everything have become, and we stay steady and strong in that. And they just, if you open the doors, they show up. So that's kind of, it wasn't a hard sell.
I think one of the things you did that was really smart, and I love for other cities to kind of fully understand, is that you didn't choose to expand one sport over the other. You just said you added tennis courts and you added pickleball because both were growing, and you were bursting at the seams already with tennis play. And I feel like sometimes we don't do a good enough job in the tennis community and at USTA Florida of really saying, hey, both of these entities are growing, so they both need to be cared for and fed. So did you find that was, unique for you all, or difficult in terms of explaining why you needed more for tennis and more for pickleball?
It was a little difficult on that end, because when we started this, we were like the first ones really pushing that, we need to do something in the pickleball world, right? So we saw the need, and we listened. And then it was a matter of selling, and going to the powers to be and saying, we're adding this beautiful building, but it's not going to take care of these people that want to play pickleball as well. So we had a plan as the building was getting built to also add some courts right across the parking lot. That is now our programmed, just like our tennis center, pickleball facility. They check in there. We have lessons. We have classes. We keep them very busy. And I think we are unique in that way. I don't think any other club in our area, at least that I know of, just really, we only are programmed pickleball like we do tennis. Um, we have another facility down the road in the city that is just, they're not programming. They're not doing any program. They're just there. So those people that don't want to do any of the program, that don't want to have a membership, we have another option for them in the city. Ours is, you're going to be a member. You don't have to be a member, but you can drop in and join classes. We have 6 to 8 week classes, beginner, intermediate, and advanced, the same kind of things we do. We do at tennis, we do as well for pickleball. So we've served them in their community, as well as expanding and serving the tennis world.
What's interesting about that is, I think I've wondered about this for so long because my parents live in the villages, and pickleball's been there and been big forever. And that's exactly how they do it. It evolves from drop-in play to now you do take classes, and you're divided up in that beginner, intermediate, advanced. And it always struck me as really interesting that the majority of public pickleball is sort of drop and play, which is what makes it really magical, because on the tennis side, we struggle with that.
Right.
but then they seem to reach this hump, right? Of like, now we need something more formal, and yet it's not there on these sort of open play courts. So can you talk a little bit about the approach? Like, how did you figure out how to program the pickleball that you had, and how do you maybe staff that? And then what's the ideal mix for tennis and pickleball to drive more play? Like, you don't want to discourage the drop-in play, but how do you balance all of that to get as many people playing as possible?
Sure. The thing that we have done is with a membership, you get open play free. And then there are open play with the pro free. So with the members, so we kind of have taken that drop in and we still give it to them. It's our open play. They still do it. They sign up for it, but they don't pay for it. Right. So we still offer that like 3-4 times a week. And there is a pro running it. So it moves quickly and, no one's staying on the courts at one place. So, and then we do also have open play that is not instructed. So there is not a pro. So we still keep that aspect of it in, as far as the drop in. So we haven't lost those people that just want that. But we also have incorporated lessons. Like I said, classes, beginner, intermediate, advanced. We do a frenzy, like a cardio pickleball class, with music and keep them moving. We have just added a pickleball machine rental. So you can go out and, take your pickleball the machine out there and you work on whatever you're working on. Um, we do little tournaments, in-house weekend tournaments, for divisions, 3-0s and below or 3-0 and above. So we try to really give them anything that they, would want anywhere so they don't have to go anywhere is basically it. We have a check-in area for them. We listen. We have like a committee of 3 or 4 people that are really entrenched in our pickleball world that are the players, that they come instead of like, I've been getting emails of why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? There's a group of them that come with good, questions and solutions possibly for us. And we sit down and listen to that as well. So we feel like we're growing in that world because we're actually listening to that world. We have a tendency to say, oh, we can't do that. But when they come to you, we say, well, let's see if we can figure that out. So now we're adding like night leagues in, and that a pro will be on doing like we do our night leagues here for those that work during the day. So we're still growing with it. So we're still figuring it out, but I feel like we have a good handle on the programming end of it and trying to really give them everything that they could possibly ask for with their membership.
Do you see staffing wise, is it similar on tennis and pickleball side? So do you staff it very similar, or, is it different?
We staff it very similar. It's a little bit of a smaller scale because this is a bigger operation at tennis than at pickleball, but we staff it pretty pretty much the same. We have found out that there's those hours between 12 and 3 that really nothing's happening at pickleball. So we literally do not have a person over there, but it's open play. So they can come and play with no charge, no pay. Long as we are not programming the course, they can drop in and play, for free. So, but we are very similar at night. We have staff over there. We're very busy at night. We have the lights on, things are happening, classes are going. So it's really similar to tennis. It mirrors it, but it's on a smaller scale.
Yeah. So, you talked a little bit about this when you were talking about pickleball, but I'm curious sort of just overall as a facility, what's that right balance between the member needs and being open to the broader community? And I have to say, one of the reasons I ask this question is oftentimes when we do assessments of public tennis centers, what we find is that they have sold so many memberships that they are now maxed out and they cannot provide almost anything else because with the number of members that they have and the demand for courts, they're sort of boxed themselves in some ways. And I'm really curious how you all balance that. Is there a limit on the number of members you have? Is there a limit on the number of court reservations they can do? Like how do you work that out?
That is a conversation because we're getting to the point that we will have to take a look at that, I believe. But for right now, it's pretty well controlled because we have season. Even though we're busy year round, there is season. So after Thanksgiving until end of February, we are busy. So you really see that at those periods of time. And we realize at those periods of time. So we also have outside people that come in and rent our facility for tournaments. And we've really cut that back during that seasonal time. And we really only do one a month anyway. But as far as the members, lining court time and all that stuff, it gets a little tight during those times. And they have to sign up on our end, they have to sign up for those classes ahead of time. And some may not make it in, but then we do have wait lists if they drop and people slide in. But it's getting to the point we have to keep an eye on that.
But, let's talk a little bit about tournaments for a minute, since you mentioned that. Sometimes you see public tennis centers that aren't running any, right? They've got beautiful facilities. They've got a lot of tennis courts. What's the value to the community and just your people that play there in having those outside entities, or even doing it yourself and hosting these types of competitive events, both for tennis and pickleball?
I think the benefit is a lot of it depends on the actual tournament. So let's just go for Little Most, for example, because we were just talking about that. We host that international tournament every year. It's huge. We shut down the tennis, like you can't get a court. Our pros don't get, to teach during that time frame. But the way it is presented to the community is you got to be a part of this because it is a spectacular event. We'll see all our members sitting out watching these kids playing going, oh my gosh, I don't want to step on the court with these kids. So it is an amazing event. So it's the way you present it, and our members and our community now know that's a thing to see, instead of like, oh gosh, we don't get a court that week. And then we do incorporate in that with Little Mo's. They do a big clinic for the kids on the opening ceremonies, and all our pros work. So they hire our pros to work on those clinics. So that kind of helps a little bit with that. But as far as like the other tournaments at pickleball, we do, we have a few very good companies that run really good spot on tournaments. So we always turn to them when they want to do tournaments. We give them the nod because we have a lot of our members that play in those tournaments. They're run very well. It's the weekend. And then we also have the other facility that if they don't want to, that we can book courts over at Lilac for them. So we're not pushing those out that just want to come play. And then we also can put our pros over there, at the other facility sometimes during those tournaments to continue to teach so they don't lose, time on that. So it is a juggling game, and, we're having to talk with sports and the division and our recreation division, to make sure that when we have these tournaments that we can slide some people over there as well.
Yeah, that's super smart.
Yeah, and the revenue end of it is good too. I mean,
I'm going to ask about that is, obviously cities are looking at dollars and cents and capital investments in facilities. So how do those types of events help to bring in revenue to kind of make it make sense financially for the city to have, this amenity?
Right. It has to be financially worth it, let's say, for us to even put our members out per se, or to juggle things around. And it is, but it also adds a benefit to the community as well, for those that now they don't have to go, down south or up north or wherever to get a tournament. It's right here in their backyard. So there's a lot of moving parts, but in the end, there's always a little, there's a good reason to encourage people to do those, but not too many of them. We could be doing one every week, to be honest with you. In pickleball world, we could do a tournament every week, but we don't. We choose one a month, and that's all we do.
That makes sense. Last question for today. You've been so generous with your time and your knowledge. What advice would you offer to other cities that may be looking to expand their public tennis or racket centers, or maybe to cities that have already expanded and are trying to find that right mix of like programs and services to offer?
I would say know your audience, right? So know and listen. I know you don't ever, in my history, you never walk into something new and make a lot of changes. It just doesn't go well. because you have people that have been there forever, players and people that have been there forever, and then they just, they buck it no matter what. They're not going to be happy with what you do. So I'd say for those public facilities looking to make these changes, sit in it for a minute, like just sit in what you're thinking and then push it out slowly and push this out slowly. So, I mean, that's the best advice, but look what's going to serve them best, the community. You got to throw in some of your adaptive programs, which, we're big at here. That serves the community. You have to, hit the kids because that serves the community. The seniors, the senior programs, you've got all those in your community, right? You've just got to listen to those certain groups, and especially going into a new facility, is communicate, with your players. See what they really want, see what you can really do. And I think it's not easy, but it's something that you have to do. Sometimes you hear things you don't want to, and and what you're doing, what you could do better, and what you're not doing right. But if you don't listen, you'll never get it right.
I think what's amazing, and you said it earlier, is that, you found ways to sort of empower the people in the community to discuss those ideas and those thoughts before they come up to you, and then present them in a way that maybe they're more actionable. And I think I haven't seen that really happen. I know in the private club space, you do have like tennis committees and other things that do function that way. And that just planted like a seed in my brain in terms of the facilities we manage, of like, maybe we should put together like a little player committee that sort of talks through ideas and thoughts that they may want to share, so that the feedback is sort of discussed, and it's not just sort of that one loud voice that's always knocking on your door, that you get more of the group thought and more baked ideas, I think.
Right. And so when you have that group too, what helps is when you can't do what they're asking, you give that group the reasons why, and they go back to the masses.
Yes.
Right? So then the masses don't come to you. They go back and say, well, this is what we tried to present, but this is why it's not going to work. And then, so then you kind of ease ease the pain of everybody coming at you like in different directions, but they're the messenger to their people, basically. So it's helpful.
I was at a city council meeting recently, and one of the things that came up there, which I'd love, as sort of before, as we close out, for you to sort of talk a little bit about, because you're in our network, right? Is they said, well, what does USTA know about pickleball? And I sort of chuckled, like, obviously knowing you and knowing Chuck and Marcelo and all of the people who are actually in USTA Florida that are actually actively running. Ivan Barron is another one that kind of to mind. So I think sometimes over the years, we've sort of painted this picture of like, this is all we do, right? We're just the tennis people, and without knowing who is in our network and who's serving on our parks committees and other things. When you look at your peers, right, the other volunteers and providers and facility operators, you know, what does it look like in the state of Florida? Where do we sit in terms of being able to provide support to the racket sports as a whole? Like, are we in a good place? Do we have the knowledge and experience that we need to do this really well?
I think we can work on that end of it. Just because I think after we speak, at the FRPA, and then we're speaking this year at the NRPA, there's a lot of unknowns in the public areas. They don't know the value of, calling you guys and getting set with USTA. They don't know the value of that. And we find that just, with our relationship with you guys, that, and yours with us, we just can build and grow and know that much more. And I think we're lacking that in our public facilities, just throughout, scattered. They're getting it. Some are getting it. And we get, after we do these talks at the NRPA, FRPA, and all that, we get the calls afterwards, like, we need some help. And so we welcome them to come, shadow us for a day, shadow us for however long you need, and see, kind of how it goes. And then we give them all your guys' contacts and stuff. So I think there's work yet to be done in that area. And I was on the
Think of us as the tournament and league people. We're the tournament,
Right.
this tournament and league. And I spend so much time saying we're so much more than that. And every community is a unique puzzle to go into and say, what does the community need? We try to listen to everybody. Okay, what puzzles does the city have to solve here? And how do we best solve that for all the participants? But obviously, we want to make sure, to your point that you said earlier, everybody that walks into the tennis center can play, or the racket center, that they can play, to be inclusive to everyone as possible.
Right, right. And I think the city facilities struggle a little bit with that. They just have the courts there, but nobody's managing, and nobody's programming. They don't know how or what to start with. And so I think there's work on that end of it as well.
Yeah, good thing to take into 2025. I know, like you said, we are very fortunate that NRPA is in Florida this year, and making a concerted effort with you and our Parks Committee to actually have a much stronger presence at both FRPA, NRPA, and then through our advocacy program, meeting with more of the cities and sharing this type of knowledge and experience, which you are kind enough to give to us for free because you're doing it every day. And we appreciate all that you do, all that the city does, and thank you for always saying yes, even when I ask you to do potty dust with me. I appreciate you always saying yes when I reach. So thank you so much.
Yeah, we appreciate your support as well. You guys do a lot for us.
Yeah. I need to make my way down there early in the year and come visit you all again. And so hopefully that'll happen. But in the meantime, I hope you, Andy, and the whole team have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you. Thank you. Same to you. Appreciate it. Take that time off.
I will. Thanks, Wendy.
All right, Laura. Nice talking to you.
That's all for this episode of the Here to Serve podcast. As we close out 2024, I want to thank all of our players, providers, parents, facilities, volunteers, and staff for making our 75th anniversary year our best one yet. Check back in January for new episodes of the Here to Serve podcast, and we want to hear from you. If you have a topic or a guest we haven't covered or had on the podcast, reach out to us via our social media channels or send us an email. We'd love to hear from you as we plan our next series of podcasts. In the meantime, stay safe, happy, and healthy this holiday season, and we'll see you back on the courts in January.